Behind the Line, episode 42. I'm your host, KC. Follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Hit the like and subscribe button for me on YouTube. Leave me a 5-star rating on iTunes. I appreciate those that have already done so and continue to support the podcast. It really goes a long way in getting more eyes on the show, getting it shown on recommended videos on YouTube. The impressions the past month on YouTube have quadrupled because of this, and I really appreciate it. I'm going to get to my UFC preview this weekend with Bryan Salmond in just a minute. We're going to talk about the Conor McGregor, Donald Cerrone fight coming up this weekend. I don't know if it's just me. It doesn't seem like a typical Conor McGregor fight to me. The media frenzy just doesn't seem to be there for this one. You know, usually with a McGregor fight, all we hear about the week of the fight is all the happenings surrounding the event. And that hasn't been the case this week. I think a lot of that has to do with his opponent. Donald Cerrone isn't exactly a household name like a Nate Diaz, or doesn't have a personal beef with McGregor like Khabib. Anyway, we'll get to that in a few minutes. I'm going to talk about the retirement of Luke Kuechly this week. But I'm going to open up today with the NBA. The big story in the NBA right now is the upcoming debut of Zion Williamson in New Orleans. He's expected to make his debut on the 22nd in a home game against the Spurs. I got to give David Griffin and the Pelicans a lot of credit for how they've handled this Zion injury. The start to this season was a disaster. Pelicans went on a 13-game losing streak. Initially, after the injury, the timetable for Zion to return was 6 to 8 weeks, which would have been around Christmas time, maybe a bit sooner. There's been pressure to get him on the court. New Orleans has an unprecedented number of nationally televised games this season. I believe it's over 30, which never happened in the Anthony Davis era, by the way. Talk all you want about AD being this big superstar. Obviously, it's not the case on a national level. One of AD's biggest gripes during his time in New Orleans was that he was going unnoticed. All of these 40-point games, carrying the team, it was going unnoticed because the Pelicans weren't on ESPN. They weren't on TNT. They weren't on ABC. I've got a news flash for Anthony Davis. Superstars don't go unnoticed, no matter what market they play in. Tim Duncan played his entire career in San Antonio. He was as dry as they come personality-wise. The Spurs stayed on national television. Dwight Howard started his career in Orlando, super small market. The Magic were always in the topic of national conversation. I could keep going. Steph Curry made Golden State a national brand. The Warriors weren't a big national franchise before Steph Curry's arrival. Anthony Davis reminds me a lot of Kyrie Irving. Now, he's not running around saying the earth is flat, but I make the comparison because I can't build my franchise around either one of those guys. Neither one elevates the players around him. The Celtics are actually better this season without Kyrie Irving. Brooklyn has a better record without Kyrie this season than when he's on the floor. Zion Williamson has accomplished something in New Orleans before even stepping foot on the court that Anthony Davis never did in 7 years. He's made the Pelicans relevant. I got to give David Griffin credit for something else too. Under immense pressure earlier this season to fire Alvin Gentry, he stayed the course. And make no mistake about it, the pressure on him to fire Gentry was intense. Local media in New Orleans, national media, the fan base, myself included, everyone was calling for Gentry's head. But this team seems to have bought into Gentry's message. He's made some adjustments to his system to cater to his lineup. Missing 4 key players Monday night in Detroit: Brandon Ingram, Drew Holiday, Derek Favors, J.J. Redick. All of them were out with minor injuries. The Pelicans found a way to close out that game on the road in overtime, something that wouldn't have happened 2 months ago. As bad as they started this season, New Orleans is only 4 games out of the number 8 seed in the West. I think this team is going to make the playoffs if Zion can stay healthy. That's going to be the key. With his body type and the grind of the NBA regular season, I worry about him being able to stay away from nagging injuries, something that has plagued Anthony Davis his entire career. Now, JJ Redick had some interesting comments on his podcast the other day. He was talking about NBA players being more interested in their social media stats pre-game than about winning or losing the game. People on Twitter were acting like he was throwing shade at LeBron. I don't think that was the case. One thing I've never questioned about LeBron James was his desire to win. The guy is a fierce competitor. He possesses that killer instinct that the great players have, something that I believe Anthony Davis lacks. But I found Redick's comments interesting. Why is our society so worried about the opinions of strangers? More importantly, why do complete strangers care about what someone they don't know is doing? NBA players being more concerned about social media likes than the actual game is a real problem. It speaks to the fact that the NBA regular season means nothing, which is one of the reasons the fucking ratings are in the tank. Me personally, I don't like social media. I like Twitter to keep up with news and headlines, but sites like Facebook, in my opinion, are a disease. Nothing on Facebook is real. Nothing. It's all fake. Facebook is as real as reality television. So why are these professional athletes in the NBA, these multi-millionaires, so concerned about it? NBA players today are soft. It's an accusation that's been thrown around for years, but it's the truth. There's no physicality in today's game. The rare occasions in a game when someone actually drives the paint, they take a little contact, they're yelling for a foul. Can you imagine Michael Jordan, Isaiah Thomas, Larry Bird, any of those guys in the 80s and 90s NBA, before a game, posting to Instagram and checking how many fucking likes they got? Those guys were worried about annihilating their opponents. Rivalries in the NBA used to be fierce. Bulls against the bad boy Pistons, Lakers Celtics, Kobe Shaq. The last real tough, real gritty team that we had in this league was the mid-2000s Pistons. Rip Hamilton, Chauncey Billups, Rasheed Wallace, those guys. Today, we celebrate guys like Kevin Durant, who is an unbelievable talent, one of the best offensive players of his generation, but wouldn't last in the Jordan era with how physical the game was played back then. All right, at this time, I'd like to welcome to the podcast the main sports anchor at KSNV News 3 in Las Vegas, Bryan Salmond. Bryan, welcome to the show, man. I appreciate you joining us today.
I'm glad to be talking to you again. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Obviously, the big story in Vegas this week is UFC 246. Conor McGregor's return to the octagon. He hadn't fought since his last fight with Khabib over a year ago, a fight that ended in a massive brawl afterwards. Saturday night, McGregor's going to be fighting Donald Cerrone in the main event. It's been reported that he also wants 2 more fights after this one this year. He's a heavy favorite going into this fight. Do you see any way Donald Cerrone can pull an upset here?
I absolutely feel that there's a way that he can pull an upset on him. And Donald Cerrone, he's a stand-up fighter, which he's very good at doing, but he also has submissions in his game. That's something that Conor McGregor does not have. So he has more ways that he can win. And he can also knock Conor McGregor out as far as, because he hits hard. He's a naturally bigger guy. He's fought at this weight class a lot longer than Conor McGregor. So, he can win that way. But the big reason why, like you said, that it's such a mismatch in a lot of people's eyes, because Cerrone is tailor-made for Conor McGregor. Because he can do submissions and he has a good ground game, but he likes to stand and bang. He gets hit a lot, and if you get hit a lot and you're fighting Conor McGregor, that's generally a recipe for disaster. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's going to be a good fight, though, and I can tell you this much. Vegas is going to be packed. is going to be excited. There's going to be a lot of people here from Ireland. It's going to be a great environment. I really can't wait for it. I have never been to a Conor McGregor fight before, and I've been to a million UFC fights, so I'm looking forward to it myself.
Yeah, I mentioned him having 2 more fights this year. So assuming he wins on Saturday night, who do you think that Dana White would match him up with? You know, I've read reports that he could have a rematch with Khabib, but I mean, to be honest, I think the result would be the same because it seems like nobody can beat Khabib right now. Personally, I'd like to see a third fight with Nate Diaz because the first 2 fights between them were incredible. They each have a win against each other, and if I remember correctly, the last fight they had, Conor McGregor, it actually came down to a decision, and they gave it to him. So, do you think that we could see maybe McGregor-Diaz 3 in 2020?
I think that that's a distinct possibility. I know who wants to fight him. Jorge Masvidal would love to fight Conor McGregor.
Mm-hmm.
Dana White does not want to put him against Conor McGregor because he knows that's a mismatch for Conor McGregor, really, because Jorge's a lot bigger than him. He punches hard. He's a guy who's not tailor-made for Conor McGregor. But if Conor McGregor sells anyway because he's the biggest star in the UFC, so no matter who he fights, it's going to be a big fight. But with how hot Jorge Masvidal is right now, if he fought Conor McGregor, could you imagine how big that fight would be? That fight would be massive.
Oh, yeah, I know.
So, yeah, I think that's the fight. Jorge is calling out for it, but he knows Dana White wouldn't put him in there, and he said it multiple times. He's like, man, Dana won't do this because he knows that's not a fight Conor wants. Conor wants money fights, but he wants someone that he wants Khabib again. He says he wants that again. He doesn't necessarily want Nate Diaz, and Dana White keeps talking about how he does not believe that Nate Diaz actually wants to fight again. You know what I mean? He's only in for the money. I mean, he didn't look very good in the Jorge Masvidal fight, really. So I think a rematch with Khabib would be good because they both want to fight each other again. It's personal. It would sell like hotcakes. Mm-hmm. But Khabib has got to worry about Tony Ferguson, maybe. I mean, that's going to be is a cardio monster like Khabib. He's a tough guy to fight, and that's going to be a good fight.
You know, obviously McGregor's return is huge for UFC because they've been kind of on a decline, I don't know, since about 2016, and that was the year that, you know, they had Conor McGregor, Ronda Rousey, Brock Lesnar. They had them in main event fights. It's highly doubtful that Ronda Rousey or Brock Lesnar ever return. So, you know, the UFC's kind of in desperate need of mainstream star power. And now that the fights are only available through ESPN Plus, you can't buy them on pay-per-view anymore. What do you think about the deal they made with ESPN? Because, you know, as a fan who used to buy the pay-per-views regularly, I haven't bought one yet since the move to ESPN because I guess it's just not what I'm used to. It's a little bit more work. I mean, do you think it was a good decision for UFC to move away from traditional pay-per-view over to ESPN streaming platform?
You know what? I completely agree with you in the fact that I agree with Dan in the sense that that's kind of the wave of the future. You know, everything seems to be moving in that direction, even though you and I are people, you know, like a lot of people, we're somewhat resistant to it. I don't want to buy a subscription and do all of that. I don't get that. I honestly don't even know how it works. So I completely agree with you. But like DAZN, you know, DAZN, DAZN in boxing, they did the same thing with Canelo Alvarez, and that's one reason why Canelo Alvarez's fights, they're not as popular here in the United States as they would be if he were like a natural pay-per-view star. So but that is also the wave of the future. Like Anthony Joshua fights on DAZN. You know, it's the wave of the future, but I'm not a huge fan of it either. But I will say this, the fact that ESPN and the UFC have, you know, combined forces now, they are more visible. You know what I mean? Like you see all advertisements all the time on the UFC and with Dana White, and you know, you see in the Conor McGregor, Cerrone advertisements and stuff like that. It's big nationally, but it has, I believe, hurt their pay-per-view numbers.
Yeah, and I actually like the fights that they'll do on ESPN. It seems like they do them about every other month on a Saturday or whatever. But I don't know, man. Like you said, ever since the move to ESPN Plus, you know, the WWE did it several years ago where they took all their pay-per-views and put them on their network or whatever. But when they did it, they kind of incentivized you to join because they knocked the pay-per-views down from $50, $60 to like $10. But UFC didn't really do that. And I feel like if they would have, then, you know, maybe knock $20 off the pay-per-view to incentivize people to join, more people would. But instead, I think it's either the same price or they knock like $10 off for your ESPN Plus subscription. So it doesn't really incentivize you to join up.
Yeah, I just don't, because you had the Watch ESPN app, which I really like, and you could watch, you know, like NBA games or whatever was on ESPN, you could get through the app. It was free. It was good. But, like, I'm already paying for cable. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that I think people get missed, or ESPN and UFC, you know, they overlooked, is the fact that people pay a ton for cable. My cable bill is ridiculous. I hate it. And so you want me to pay another subscription to watch stuff that should be on cable? You know what I mean? I'm not cool with that. Yeah. I'm not cool with that at all.
Yeah, I'm the same way. And the only reason I keep cable is for, you know, NFL and NBA. Otherwise, I would get rid of it. But it would just be a whole lot easier for the pay-per-views to be available on my satellite, you know.
I couldn't agree with you more. Could not agree with you more.
I wanted to get your opinion on the Raiders' move to Vegas. Me personally, I think the NFL should have pushed the Chargers to relocate because they don't get any support in Los Angeles, and Oakland and the Bay Area have always supported the Raiders. But they start up in Vegas in 2020, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I kind of see Vegas as like a transient city, kind of like Atlanta, where, you know, Atlanta sports teams kind of struggle to gain support because a lot of people living in Atlanta aren't from there. You know, they're fans of other teams. I know we talked before we went on air about the Vegas hockey team getting a lot of support. So is it the same way in Las Vegas? Do you think the Raiders will have as good of a fan base in Vegas as they did out in Oakland?
I absolutely believe that they will. There's a few reasons why. One, the whole move, if the Chargers came here, I don't think it would be as good because I don't believe there's as big of a fan base already here that would support the Chargers. The NFL really should have kept the Chargers in San Diego and got them a new stadium somehow because the Chargers and San Diego just kind of go together to me. And you're right, LA doesn't support them. LA supports the Raiders, and the Raiders aren't even there anymore. So, I mean, that'll tell you one thing. But as far as the Raiders coming here, like I said off air, there are already a ton of people that are from the Bay Area. Like myself, I was born in Oakland. A lot of people that were born in that general area that live in Las Vegas. A lot of people that are born in LA that were Raider fans live in Las Vegas. The people that live there will travel here to come support the team. The people that live in the Bay Area will travel here to support the team. So you combine all of that and the fact that the Raiders have just one of the biggest fan bases in the NFL in general. You know what I mean? Like, they have Raider Nation in Missouri. I've done stories with Raider Nation in West Virginia. I mean, they're all over the place. So them being in Las Vegas is going to be huge. Another reason, the stadium's going to be bananas. So think about it like this. You have 16 games a year, 8 games. If you live in Kansas City, which road game are you going to go watch?
Vegas.
If you live in if you live in New Orleans, what road game are you going to go watch? If you live in not Cleveland, I was naming off a few of the teams that they already say are going to be playing here next year. The Saints are coming here next year. The Browns the Raiders are going to Cleveland. I can't remember any of the other.
You'll have Denver. You'll have
well, the AFC teams. Well, I mean, they're all coming here, but
yeah.
The NFC teams, I know the Saints are coming here, and I can't remember who else it was, but so think about it, any of those, even the AFC teams, like you said, Denver, Kansas City, I mean, the Chargers, any of those teams, if you're going to go on a road trip, you're coming to Vegas.
Right.
I mean, you are coming to Vegas. Similar to how the hockey team was in the first year. The first year, if you went inside the T-Mobile Arena, it was likely 50-50 with, you know, Vegas Golden Knights fans and fans of like the Blackhawks, fans of the Blues. It was really prominent inside the T-Mobile Arena. But year 2, it was probably more like 70-30. And then this year, it was more like 80-20. I mean, there are way more Vegas-born fans, what they call them, here in Vegas than the first year. And so that first year for the Raiders here inside that new stadium, it may be 50-50, but I guarantee you that stadium will be sold out every single game, because who is not coming to Las Vegas to watch a football game?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right.
Even if you're a fan of the other team. So it will be bananas. Like, that atmosphere will be bananas. And another thing, Las Vegas does not want the stereotypical Raiders fan. Like, that was something that they talked about a long time ago, with like not allowing spikes in the arena and, like the black hole, those kind of fans.
Yeah.
Even though that's the culture of the Raiders. Yeah, that's the culture of the Raiders. So that will be interesting to see how the Raider fans are inside that new stadium. If they're going to be like the, stuck up, prissy type, or will they still have some of their true Raider Nation black hole fans in there, minus the skulls and the the spikes.
Well, the Raiders, when you think about the Raiders, you always think like gritty. You know what I'm saying? Like, you think about the Steelers, you think about defense, and you think about the Raiders, you just think about almost like outlaw type. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so, and
that's
kinda,
Oakland.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like Vegas is trying to polish them up. I mean, am I wrong?
No, that's a good like a estimation of what they're doing. They're trying to polish them up. They don't want, that gritty. I mean, Oakland is a rough city. Like, Oakland is a city. It's like New Orleans. It's kind of hard. Or New York or Brooklyn or something like that, or Detroit, Chicago. It's kind of hard to grow up in Oakland and not have a little bit of toughness to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just one of those kind of cities. So that's their fan base. So if you were to go to Oakland to watch a Raiders game, that's not a coliseum that you want to go to wearing another team's colors and uniforms.
Right.
You know what I mean? Not saying that's right, but that's just kind of the way that it is. And they don't want that kind of element here in Vegas. Just like Philadelphia. If you go to Philadelphia and you're wearing a Giants jersey or a Cowboys jersey in certain areas of that stadium, you may have an issue.
Yes, yeah. It was like that in the NFC Championship game in the Superdome last year, especially after the blown call. But there was a little contingent of Rams fans in the section over from me, and as soon as that blown call was made, every one of them took off their jerseys because they knew going out it was going to be a problem.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, that was still the worst call ever. Then they get hosed again. Like, Breeze played terribly, but I thought they made the rule for a challenge for that exact call.
I know. I actually wanted to close out with the Saints. And for those that don't know, Bryan covered the Saints for years in New Orleans. And like you mentioned, for the third straight year, another disappointing exit in the playoffs. This year was kind of a bit different, in my opinion, because unlike the other 2 years, I thought that they deserved to lose that game against the Vikings. All signs are pointing.
They did.
Yeah, all signs pointing to next season that Drew Brees is going to be coming back. And I actually talked last week about Sean Payton possibly facing a difficult decision, and maybe in the next year or two, kind of similar to what Bill Belichick faced a few years ago when the Patriots had their future quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo, and they ended up having to trade him because Tom Brady didn't want to retire. So, the Saints have both Taysom Hill and Teddy Bridgewater. Both of them are up for contracts, and I think Bridgewater's actually an unrestricted free agent. And the past couple of years, Drew Brees has kind of taken it year to year, but he stated a few times that he wants to play until he's 45 years old. And Teddy Bridgewater and Taysom Hill aren't just going to sit around forever waiting on him to retire. So I guess my question is, what do you think that Mickey Loomis and Sean Payton should do? Do you stick with an aging Brees at, 42, 43, 44 years old, or do they eventually have to make a decision to move towards the future with Teddy Bridgewater or Taysom Hill?
Well, I feel like this. I feel that Teddy Bridgewater, he's got a great situation in the fact that they paid him a ton of money to be a backup. So I'm sure he wants to start. And if he's Drew Brees' backup, just like this year and I believe last year as well, he'll have an opportunity to start because I don't see Brees lasting the entire season. I mean, it's just, you know, there may be some nicks and bruises and whatnot, and he's older, so he may get a chance, an opportunity to start. But if he wants, like, bigger money and to be a starting quarterback of a franchise that is not as good, but he wants to lead them, then I'd say that he should go. Hill, on the other hand, he needs to sit down and take whatever they give him. Because, I mean, in my opinion, he's been made by the offense. Mm-hmm. He's made by Sean Payton's brilliance and the fact that, you know, he's using them in a great way. That system fits him perfect. He has a great thing going. So there's absolutely no reason in the world for him to wait or for him to leave or to demand a whole bunch of money because he's not going to command a lot of money on the market, in my opinion. So I think what they end up doing is probably letting Bridgewater go because he can likely make more money somewhere else. Like say that, you know, his hometown team in Miami wants him, even though they're drafting someone likely. But you put Teddy Bridgewater as your starting quarterback and let the young guy groom for a year or two, and you got something good probably. So, I mean, they paid Ryan Fitzpatrick, I don't know, double what Bridgewater makes probably. So, yeah, he's probably going to leave to try to make some money, or maybe he stays, you know, because he knows he has a good thing going. And, you know, I mean, being a backup, Teddy Bridgewater being a backup quarterback for the Saints, making probably the most of any backup in the NFL, living in New Orleans, backing up Drew Brees on a good team, that's not a bad life.
No, and here's the thing, you know, and this is just pure speculation on my part, but I don't think Teddy Bridgewater wants to leave. Like, I think he wants to stay. And, you know, this season when Drew Brees went out for those 5 weeks, I think that was almost like a blessing in disguise because to close out the year, he was as best as he's been since his prime days. And, you know, 2017 and 2018, when they tailed off toward the end of the season, his production just started to plummet each of those 2 years. Yeah. And this year that didn't happen because he had 5 weeks of rest. So I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know if they do something where you can't cycle starters in and out, you know, in the NFL. It just doesn't happen. But I don't know if they figure a way to keep them both. But I don't think Teddy Bridgewater wants to leave.
I would agree with you. I would agree. And why would he? You know what I mean? I mean, guys are competitors and they want to have their own team and start. He's done that. What franchise? Okay, say you're Teddy Bridgewater, right? What franchise would you want to leave for if they're going to pay you? I don't know. He makes like $6 million a year or something like that. I think
$7.5.
7.5. Okay, so say he gets I don't know, $14 million a year from who?
Miami.
I mean, literally who?
Miami.
Miami, because he's from there. Maybe that would be probably alluring to him. San Diego, maybe.
Yeah, but the thing of it is too, like you said, you know, guys are competitors. Why would you want to leave a winning situation to go to somewhere like Miami, a team that's been a perennial loser for 15 years? You know, I mean.
Yes. Yeah. The only reason he would want to do that is one, for money, two, because he's from there. I believe he's from Miami, I'm pretty sure, right?
He is.
Those are the only reasons. And, you know, as an athlete, a competitor, you feel that you can make the difference. I mean, Miami just beat New England to finish the season, but they're still in that division. And come on now. Miami got rid of all his best players.
Yeah. You know, I just thought of this. The one place that I think he might go that they could immediately compete next year would be Carolina, because you already got your running back.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going to happen with Greg Olsen, but you got a rookie head coach and Matt Rule coming in, and you know, he could go to Carolina and they could win next year.
No, you're right. That would be and if they're going to pay him $15 million a year, then that would be a good place to go. However, you heard Rule came in and said, you know, he's not ruling out, no pun, Cam Newton. He's not ruling him out. So,
To me, that whole thing, like, I know he's quote unquote not ruling him out, but he's also not committed to him. And I kind of equated it to if you get hired as a head coach and you got Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, Drew Brees, Brady, name any quarterback, and your introductory press conference, there's not going to be a question. And if there is, you're like, oh, we're going with Russell Wilson next year. But with Cam Newton, he's kind of like, I don't know. We won't rule him out, but I'm not going to say one way or another. I want to meet with the team first. So, to me, Cam Newton's as good as gone in Carolina. I think both of them need a fresh start.
I agree as far as Cam Newton wanting to go somewhere else. If you're Cam Newton, you're like, really? You don't want me? I have won an MVP. I led our team to the Super Bowl, 4 years ago, whatever it was.
Yeah.
If I'm him, I've got an attitude. I don't care how bad I played the last few years. I didn't play great, but no one on our team played great except for McCaffrey, really. So, you're going to put that on me, whatever. I'll go somewhere else and I'll show you who I am if I'm Cam Newton. That's my feeling. So I get him one in the league. And he gets paid a lot, though.
Yeah, well, and number two, Cam Newton, and I don't know why people keep forgetting this, Cam Newton's been hurt the past 2 years. I mean, 2018, he carried that team to the playoffs, and he was hurt the entire season, and they still made the playoffs. And then, obviously this year he got knocked out. I think it was week 2, and he was done. But, obviously he's not been as productive because he's been injured for the past couple of years. So I don't understand why, everybody's just writing Cam Newton off like his career is all of a sudden over.
I know. I agree. I'm with you. Like, they're tripping.
Yeah.
Like, how do you think this dude was an MVP a few years ago and led the Carolina Panthers to the Super Bowl. Yeah. They were the first team to win back-to-back NFC South titles, right? They're the first team to go back-to-back in the NFC South, I believe.
Yeah, you're right. Now, New Orleans has done it 3 times, the past 3 years, but Carolina was the first one to do it.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, please, these people, I don't know, like, anyone who is anti-Cam Newton, they really need to know what they're talking about because, I mean, this prisoner of the moment type of mentality, that'll get you Ryan Fitzpatrick, that'll get you I don't know, any quarterback. That'll get you Case Keenum and you know what I mean?
Yeah. But the crazy thing is, I think the Vikings made a mistake letting Case Keenum go because it's one of those things where he fit perfectly with that system.
Exactly.
I mean, he fit perfectly with them.
I couldn't agree more. With you. When they let him go, I was like, really? Why wouldn't you just pay him a little bit? Pay him a lot less than what you're going to pay Kirk Cousins. Yeah. You have the same quarterback.
Yeah. And at least Case Keenum can perform in prime time.
Yes, that was a terrible decision. I mean, I actually like Kirk Cousins. You know what I mean? I liked him at Michigan State. I kind of liked him when they drafted him with the Redskins. I thought he could be like a decent quarterback, but he is not. He's not Pat Mahomes. You know what I mean? He's not an elite quarterback. He's elite quarterback money. He's not an elite quarterback to me.
I agree. All right, man. I appreciate you coming on. I'll let you get off of here. You got anything you want us to plug or you want to plug?
Oh, man. Anyone who's listening, follow your guy on Twitter, Instagram, or whatever, man. I try to put up a lot of good content from stuff that I'm doing out here in Vegas, whether it be boxing, UFC, Golden Knights. I have a lot of Raiders stuff as well. WNBA, we cover that as well. We have a AAA baseball team. It's actually Bryan News, Bryan News LV3. That's my handle for Twitter and Bryan News 3LV. Yeah, give your guy a follow, man. And Casey knows if you talk with me on social media, I talk back, man. I like to engage with folks, man. So yeah, I'll let your guy. And Casey, man, I appreciate you having me on. It's been a while since we talked, man. I like doing stuff like this. You know what I mean? You guys are up and comers. I see the fire in you, man. So I appreciate it.
I appreciate you coming on, dude. We'll have you back anytime.
There you go. Just let me know. I'll be back.
All right, man. Appreciate it. And that was Bryan Salmond at KSNV News 3 in Las Vegas. Appreciate him coming on to join us. Tuesday night, it was reported that Carolina Panthers linebacker Luke Kuechly is retiring from the NFL. Personally, I was hoping he would end up in New Orleans alongside Demario Davis, create one of the best linebacking duos in the league. But at 28 years old, Kuechly has decided to end his NFL career. Anytime a player in the midst of his prime retires in the NFL, the same narrative resurfaces. People overreact. The NFL's in trouble. More and more players are retiring in their prime. Football is too dangerous of a sport. Let's start with the too dangerous part. Yes, football's a dangerous sport. It's a contact sport. There are going to be injuries. Modern medicine has revealed that concussions are serious business, more serious than we thought they were even 10 years ago. And the NFL's reacted accordingly with their concussion protocol. The National Football League's been around for 100 years. The first few decades, these guys were playing with leather helmets and no face guards. The notion that NFL players have a lower life expectancy than people who don't play football is completely false. A study done in 2012 found that players in the NFL actually have a lower death rate than men in the general population. Now, you can argue their quality of life is difficult after the league with the injuries and things of that nature. But you can make that same argument for coal miners or people who spend 30 years working in a steel mill breathing in dangerous particles every day. The difference is a lot of these NFL guys are making millions and guys in coal mines and steel mills are not making close to that. Many NFL players go on to lead long, successful lives after they retire. As far as more and more players choosing to retire in their primes and that becoming a problem for the NFL, I think that is an over-exaggeration. Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, all playing into their 40s. Brett Favre took a beating his entire career. Didn't retire till he was 40 years old. Hell, Larry Fitzgerald just announced that he's going to come back for his 17th season. In the past 12 months, we've witnessed the retirements of Rob Gronkowski, Andrew Luck, and now Luke Kuechly. What did all three of these guys have in common? One, they all had extensive history with injuries. Luke Kuechly went 3 straight years with concussions from 2015 to 17. Rob Gronkowski was constantly pointing out how teams played extra physical against him. He was always dealing with nagging injuries. Andrew Luck missed an entire season due to injury. Secondly, they've all made enough money to secure their family's future for generations to come. Gronk and Kuechly both made over $50 million from their NFL contracts alone. Andrew Luck made over $100 million in 7 years. You don't see second or third year All-Pro players or Pro Bowlers abruptly just retiring because the game is too dangerous. The guys that you see retiring have already made their money. Early retirements have always been a part of sports. This is nothing new. Barry Sanders retired in the prime of his career back in the 90s. Michael Jordan retired in the mid-90s in the midst of the Bulls' dominance over the NBA. My point is, it's nothing new. And it's not something that's specific to the NFL. NBA players retire young. I mentioned Michael Jordan's retirement, but I guess it doesn't count since he came back 18 months later. But in the NBA, Amari Stoudemire retired at 33. Gilbert Arenas at 30. Baron Davis retired at 33. And this all happened in the last 8 to 10 years. Every season, someone's going to retire 29, 30, 31 years old. It's always happened. It's going to continue to happen. This isn't a new problem that the NFL's facing. If anything, the game is safer now than it's ever been before. It's a full-on contact sport. You can only make the game so safe. I mentioned Brett Favre a minute ago. He played in an era where you could hit the quarterback in the pocket as hard as you hit a running back or a receiver running across the middle. Nowadays, if you even dream about hitting a quarterback, they're going to hit you with a personal foul. All right, I'm going to try not to spend too much time on this next story before we get out of here because I think the frenzy being made about it is utterly ridiculous. Odell Beckham Jr. was in attendance to watch his alma mater, LSU, annihilate whiny Dabo and Clemson the other night. On the field post-game, everyone is celebrating. The purple and gold streamers are flying everywhere in the Superdome. And so is money from the generous hands of Odell Beckham. He's showering LSU players with cash like they're at Rick's or Larry Flint's on Bourbon Street. Why are people making a big deal about this? Who fucking cares if Odell Beckham was tossing money around? He's excited. He's living in the moment. I know these are college athletes, but come on, really? And I'm sure the NCAA will try and turn this into something it's not. God forbid these college kids be compensated for their hard work. Oh, but KC, they receive a free education. Don't at me with that bullshit. Joe Burrow was worth far more this season to LSU than that little scholarship he was given, if he was given one. Do you know how much money the NCAA made off of this one game alone? LSU, Clemson, the SEC, the ACC, ESPN. Everyone was raking in the cash except the players that were responsible for drawing the viewers. No one watching that game Monday night tuned in to see Ed Orgeron or Dabo Swinney. They didn't tune in to see Melania Trump pull her hand away when Donald Trump tried to hold it during the national anthem. They tuned in to see Joe Burrow versus Trevor Lawrence, LSU versus Clemson. If the NCAA does anything about this, it would be an outright travesty. They can't punish Joe Burrow or some of the other players seen in the video because they're on their way out. But if they put sanctions on LSU or fines, any punishment, in my opinion, would be wrong. The school, Ed Orgeron, they had nothing to do with this. That being said, this is typical behavior from Odell Beckham, inserting himself into the spotlight. And now there's a warrant out for his arrest in New Orleans for slapping a male cop on the ass in the locker room. I don't know if you've seen the video. If you haven't, go check it out. It's completely childish behavior by Odell Beckham. And why am I not surprised by this? Kevin Stefanski's got his hands full with this Browns team. A locker room full of guys with low maturity levels. It's going to be a tough first season for him. Rookie head coach having to deal with guys like Odell Beckham, Baker Mayfield, Myles Garrett. Good luck, dude. All right, that's all for today, guys. I'll be back tomorrow to preview the NFL Conference Championships, give my bets for each game. Hit the like and subscribe button on YouTube. Leave a 5-star rating on iTunes. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. I will see you tomorrow.